Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into something today that everyone's experienced awkwardness.
Oh, we've all been there.
We've got this fascinating excerpt that really digs into why we have those cringe moments and what purpose they serve.
It's gonna be fun.
By the end of this, you'll not only understand why those moments happen,
Mhm.
but maybe even see the upside.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Most people avoid awkwardness like the plague,
Right.
but we're gonna look at why it's actually like a key ingredient in how humans interact.
I like that, a key ingredient.
Yeah.
So the source uses a cool analogy to define awkwardness. Imagine social interactions as this massive game of Tetris.
Okay.
We're all trying to fit these weird shapes into the slots,
I
right?
like where you're going with this.
Awkwardness is when those shapes clash, when we bump into each other and try to readjust.
It's a great visual. Those collisions can be frustrating, but is a chance to learn, adapt, and figure out how to fit together.
I love that. And get this,
Mm-hmm.
awkwardness might actually be an evolutionary advantage.
You'd think we would have evolved to just avoid it completely, right?
Right.
But the source argues that it could be a powerful way to signal cooperation. Like, imagine our ancestors trying to just survive, right?
Yeah.
Those who could show good intentions, their willingness to follow social norms, were probably more trusted and accepted.
That makes sense.
So it was important for survival.
So like those little awkward moments like when you bump into someone and apologize profusely, that could have helped our ancestors build strong social bonds.
Exactly. It's a way of saying, hey, I care about this group, I'm not a threat.
Oh, that's interesting. Now think about those times when you see someone else having an awkward moment.
Oh, I hate that.
That secondhand cringe wanting to look away. But can't the source calls this vicarious embarrassment?
We've all been there. It's like your internal alarms are going off even though you're not the one on the spot.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So the source links this to empathy. It even ties it to why we love cringe comedy. Like, why are we drawn to other people's awkwardness?
It lets us tap into a shared human experience. We see ourselves in those fumbles, it's relatable, and research suggests that people susceptible to this, to vicarious embarrassment, are actually more empathetic overall.
Oh, wow. So cringe comedy is like secret empathy training.
Maybe it is.
But why does awkwardness physically feel so bad?
Okay, get ready for this. Research shows that our brains process social missteps like physical pain.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah. Think about that part of your brain, the insula. It lights up when you stub your toe or burn your hand. Right.
Yeah.
Studies show it also activates when we feel social rejection or embarrassment.
Oh, wow. So like my body hasn't caught up to the fact that a social faux pas isn't a saber-toothed tiger.
Right. Our brains are still kind of wired to react like we're in a life or death situation.
I can see that fight or flight response.
Our evolutionary wiring hasn't quite gotten to the nuance of modern social life.
Interesting. The source also talks about awkwardness and oxytocin.
Ah, yes.
Isn't that the love hormone?
Yeah.
What's it doing mixed up with awkwardness?
It is, and that's what makes it so fascinating. It's crucial for social bonding, but also in those not-so-fun social feelings like fear and anxiety.
So it's not all sunshine and roses then.
No, not exactly. The source suggests oxytocin might make both good and bad social interactions more memorable.
Huh. So maybe that's why those awkward moments stick with us more than the good ones.
Could be. It's called negativity bias, where we give more weight to negative experiences. We even have more words for negative emotions.
That's fascinating. It's true. I think a lot of us get stuck replaying those awkward moments in our heads, worrying what others thought.
It's totally understandable to feel that way.
Yeah.
But let's be real. You are not the main character of everyone else's story.
That's such a good point.
We often overestimate how important we are to others. The source calls it protagonist disease. It can cause a lot of unnecessary anxiety.
And then there's that other thing, the fundamental attribution error. We judge ourselves easier than we judge others.
Oh yeah, classic double standard. We're quick to give ourselves a break, but not others. Recognizing these biases can help us loosen their grip, though.
So instead of agonizing over that awkward moment, maybe we should remember that everyone else is busy being the main character of their own story. They probably haven't given our awkwardness a second thought.
Exactly. And this leads us to a beautiful concept I think you'll love. It's called sonder.
Ooh, I love that word.
It comes from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, and it basically means realizing that everyone else is living a life as vivid and complex as our own, filled with all their joys, sorrows, and everything in between.
It's like when you're walking down a crowded street and you realize that every single person has a whole world inside of them.
Precisely. Embracing sonder helps us see ourselves as part of a larger tapestry. It makes our own awkward moments feel less heavy and lets us appreciate how interconnected the human experience really is.
It's a really beautiful way to shift perspective and find comfort knowing we're all in this together, awkwardness and all.
It really is. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Kind of takes the pressure off, you know? Those awkward moments, it can make you feel so alone, but then remembering everyone's got their own thing going on is, it's comforting.
Totally. It's like zooming out to see the whole picture instead of being stuck in that close up. You realize those fumbles, those blunders, they're just blips.
Exactly. It helps you let go of some of that self-consciousness, embrace the imperfections, because those are what make us human.
And it's those imperfections that help us connect with others. That shared humanity, the joy, the sorrow, yeah, even the awkwardness.
Speaking of, let's go back to that physical discomfort we were talking about, that feeling of wanting to just melt into the floor when you make a social misstep.
Oh, yeah. Heart racing, palms sweating, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
It's not just in my head, right?
It's not. The source explains those awkward situations. They can trigger our sympathetic nervous system, the same one for fight or flight.
So my body is basically treating a social blunder like a bear is chasing me.
Pretty much, yeah. Think about it. Way back when, a threat was simple. A saber-toothed tiger, a rival tribe. Now it's all this nuanced stuff. Saying the wrong thing, bad first impression, spilling coffee on someone.
And our bodies are just like, whoa, danger.
Right. Our brains haven't caught up. They still react like it's life or death, which, in a way, for our social standing, it kind of is. Affects our relationships, belonging, even resources.
Makes sense why our brains take it seriously then. So what do we do about these awkward moments and the physical stuff that comes with them?
Well, the source doesn't give any magic tricks, but it does say everyone experiences this. It's like universal human stuff, part of what makes us social creatures.
Okay, that is reassuring. So maybe next time I'm cringing, wanting to disappear, I should just remember I'm normal, just a human trying to figure out this crazy social world.
Yeah, exactly. It means you care about social norms, you're tuned into others' feelings, and like we said, it can even make you more pro-social, generous.
All right, everyone listening, let's do a quick recap of what we've learned about awkwardness so far.
Okay, so we started with awkwardness as this, like a fine-tuning tool for social interactions. Helps us in those gray areas where the rules aren't clear-cut.
Yeah. And then that unexpected evolutionary advantage, like it signals to others, we want harmony.
Right. Then we got into awkwardness and empathy, how those cringy moments, they can actually be a sign you get other people's feelings.
And we can't forget the brain stuff. Like, our brain processes social missteps, like almost like physical pain, fight or flight response, and all that.
We also touched on oxytocin, the love hormone, and how it's in both good and bad social stuff. Might be why those awkward moments stick around in our memory.
And then, to wrap it up so far, we encouraged everyone to think about sonder, that idea that everyone we meet has a life as complex as ours.
So putting it all together, what does this mean for us?
I think it means we can see awkwardness differently. Not be afraid of it, but realize it's, like, normal, an essential human thing even.
Yeah, it's a reminder we're all just trying to figure this whole social thing out. And sometimes it's going to be messy.
But that's okay, right?
Absolutely. It's part of the fun.
Okay, so we talked about how awkwardness can make us feel like we're the center of attention, like everyone's watching our every move. But the source says we're not actually the main characters in everyone else's stories.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in our heads, overthinking everything, thinking everyone is as focused on us as we are on ourselves.
Like we're under a microscope 24/7.
Most people are too busy being the main character of their own story to worry about our awkward moments.
Phew, what a relief.
Takes the pressure off. We can be kinder to ourselves, laugh it off, move on easier.
So how do we get out of that feeling of being judged all the time?
The source suggests shifting perspective. Instead of trying to be the main character, what if we're just supporting actors?
Oh, that's interesting. It does take the pressure off. You can focus on the other characters around you.
Exactly. Reminds us everyone has a story, even if it's not about us.
We're all part of this giant web of stories, experiences, all unique, all valuable.
That's a great way to put it.
The source uses this analogy of cardboard, representing all the actions we can possibly do. Really shows how, like, physics, laws, social norms, they all shape us.
It's about those boundaries we all have, the rules of the game, right? And awkwardness is like sandpaper, smoothing out those rough edges.
So we're trying to fit our unique shapes onto this pre-cut cardboard, And sometimes it's a tight squeeze.
Yeah. And awkwardness helps us adjust, adapt, make those compromises so we can all exist in these spaces.
But what about when the cardboard itself feels too small? Like when we want to break out of the mold, express ourselves in ways that don't fit the script.
That's a good question. It points to something important. Sometimes awkwardness is us trying to force ourselves where we don't belong.
Trying to cram a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. And then maybe it's time to look at the cardboard itself. Question those norms, those expectations making us feel awkward.
Asking ourselves, is this really me? Is this how I want to live?
Right. And if not, maybe it's time to cut our own shapes, create our own spaces, rules, what's acceptable and what's not. Embrace our uniqueness, not worry about fitting in perfectly.
Because at the end of the day, those imperfections, those are what make us interesting, relatable human.
Exactly. Those are what draw people to us, not being perfect little robots.
Now let's go back to that negativity bias. The source says our brains give more weight to the bad stuff, which might be why awkward moments stick around longer than good ones.
Like the bad stuff is glued to our brains and the good stuff just slips through our fingers.
It makes sense for our ancestors, right?
Mm-mm.
They had to remember dangers, poison berries, predators, wrong paths.
But nowadays, that negativity bias can be a real bummer.
It can, yeah. We dwell on awkward stuff, it gets huge in our minds and blocks out all the good things. So, how do we fight back against this bias? How do we stop dwelling and focus on the positive?
Well, mindfulness can help, paying attention to our thoughts, feelings without judging them. That way, we can notice when we're spiraling down into negativity.
And when we notice it, try to shift gears, right, to something good.
Right, like something you're grateful for, a happy memory, or even just a few deep breaths. The more we practice, the better we get at ditching those negative thoughts and enjoying the good stuff.
But we're not alone in this, right? Everyone has awkwardness, everyone has moments they'd rather forget.
Absolutely. We're all in the same boat, navigating this sometimes choppy social sea.
So maybe by talking about it, laughing at ourselves, giving each other some compassion, we can make the whole social scene a bit nicer for everyone.
I love that. Like, we're all in this awkward boat together, and if we help each other, we can reach a calmer, happier place.
That's a perfect analogy. It
Yeah.
sums up everything we've been saying. We're all in it together, awkward moments and all. And by accepting those imperfections, giving each other a break, remembering we're not the center of the universe. That's how we make a world where awkwardness isn't scary, but something that brings us closer.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect place to continue. You know, it's funny how those awkward moments, the ones we want to hide, can actually be the start of something great.
Oh, totally. It's like in those movies, right? Where someone trips and spills their drink all over their date,
Yeah.
but then it turns into this moment of connection.
Exactly. It breaks down those walls, and you get to be more genuine, more real with each other.
And those imperfections, the things that make us cringe, they can actually be, like, endearing, right?
They can. They make you relatable. They make you human. People can connect with that.
Makes you memorable, too.
Yeah.
Like, think about those first dates that went hilariously wrong. Or
Yeah.
that job interview where you just completely blanked. You might cringe thinking about it, but they make for great stories.
Oh, absolutely. They become those moments you remember, you laugh about with friends. They're part of your history.
So maybe instead of wanting to erase those awkward moments, we should, like, embrace them, you know?
Mm.
They make us who we are.
That's such a good point. It's a total shift in how we think about it, right? Awkwardness isn't something to be ashamed of. It's just part of life, adding a little flavor.
And it reminds us that being perfect is impossible.
Yeah.
And trying to be perfect just sets us up for disappointment.
Right. It's in those moments where we're not perfect, where we let our guard down, that real connection happens.
So let's all just give ourselves permission to be a little awkward, a little messy, a little less than perfect.
Because when we stumble and fall, that's how we find out how strong we are, how resilient we are, and that's what connects us to everyone else.
This has been such a cool deep dive into awkwardness. I feel like I see it completely differently now.
Me too. It's amazing how something we usually try to avoid can teach us so much about being human and connecting with others.
So before we wrap up, any key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, first off, remember, everyone feels awkward sometimes. It's just part of being a social person.
And it might even mean you're good at empathy, at understanding other people.
Exactly. Second, don't be afraid of those awkward moments. They're a part of you, and they can lead to great stories and connections.
And don't forget, you are not the star of everyone else's show. They're too busy with their own lives to be judging you all the time.
And lastly, try that sonder thing we talked about. Remember, everyone you meet is living a whole life, just as complicated and meaningful as yours. Be kind to them like you'd want them to be kind to you.
This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into awkwardness.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope you learned something new and maybe even feel a little better knowing you're not alone in those awkward moments.
Until next time, embrace those quirks, celebrate those imperfections, and keep diving deep.